Welcome back to Voices in Mystery. Our next guest is Marlis Day, who's from Southern Indiana. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's
Where do you
nice to
live?
be here. I live in Southern Indiana, down where there's a lot of rolling hills and terrain. It's north of Evansville. We're an hour from Kentucky, so we're pretty far down the state.
Do you write full-time, or do you also have a day job?
I'm a retired teacher,
Ooh.
so I have a lot of time. I don't write every day, but I do enjoy writing. But I live in the country, and I have children and grandchildren and a yard and a house and a husband, and we like to travel, so I don't write full-time, but I could.
Well, you have a book just out, and that's The Secret of Bailey's Chase. It's a juvenile mystery, is it?
It's a juvenile mystery with a lot of magic sprinkled through it.
All right,
So
set that up for us.
Well, two little girls, and they are distant cousins, but they don't know each other. And then a terrible accident happens, and one of the little girls becomes an orphan. She lives in California. She's sent to Indiana to live with her little cousin, and these girls are 10 years old, and they start noticing strange things from their first meeting. It turns out each of them inherited half of their great-great-great-grandmother Bailey's special gift. Grandmother Bailey was a psychic. She knew just where to dig a well. She could draw fire. She knew how to wish warts away. She had all kinds. She made herbal medicines for all the community, and everyone in the town loved Granny Bailey so much that they named their community after her, Bailey's Chase. So when these two little girls meet, they do not know that they each have inherited half of her gift. Now, the reason the gift didn't get passed on to anyone in particular is one day when Granny was young, she was struck by lightning, and her genes and chromosomes got jumbled up every which way, and it split them in half, and instead of them being passed on to one certain relative, they bounced around hither and yon for several generations and ended up in two distant great-great-great-grandchildren. And each child had half of a gift, but half of a gift is actually like having no gift. So only when these girls come together to live in the same house as sisters do they begin to feel the magical powers that they have.
So they'll combine their magical powers?
The powers kick in the moment they meet. And from the very beginning, the night of their first meeting, when Gray arrives with Sparky's family, Gray notices sparks emitting from Sparky's hair, but nobody else can see them. And when Sparky looks at Gray, she notices her eyes change color all the time, but nobody else can see it. But the girls know something is strange. So from that day on, strange things begin to happen. But only when they meet a gypsy woman, Rupa, do they realize the story of their great-grandmother. But they also find out that they can never tell. If they share this secret, they will lose the power. She gives them a gypsy charm to protect them because there are going to be a lot of enemies.
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
So these two little girls in the small Midwestern town set off for adventures, and with only this charm to protect them, and they have to carry this secret, the secret of Bailey's Chase.
What age group is this book written for?
Well, the publisher says 10 and up, but I've known some 7- and 8-year-olds that have read it, if they were very good readers. But I really wrote it as a read aloud, because when I was a teacher, I read aloud to all my students, and kids love to be read to. And I tried to write this so it would sound good if it were read aloud. So I'm hoping that teachers will read it aloud to children who aren't quite old enough to read it on their own. But the main characters are 5th graders and 6th graders, so that's kind of the target audience.
What are the rules for writing juvenile mysteries? No dead bodies, no decapitations. What did you follow as far as what is suitable and not suitable?
You know, I didn't really look that up, nor did I question anyone about that. I just, with my own common sense, decided that it should be very clean and wholesome, and that the children shouldn't be tortured, or there should be no sex or anything perverse in any way. The little girls are 10 years old in the first book, and I'm working on a sequel right now in which they're 6th grade. They're 5th graders in this book. They're 6th graders in the second book, which I have almost finished.
Well, but it could go a long ways, right? You can have them grow up together.
Well, I'm just thinking of a 2-book set. And then I have 3 mysteries in the Margot Brown mystery series. So I'm a mystery writer too, and I had written 3 adult mysteries, and I just shifted gears and took a break. I retired from teaching, and I really missed the kids and being in the classroom reading, and I thought, instead of writing my 4th Margot Brown mystery, I think I'll shift gears here and write something for kids. But it was a real switch for me, because I had to think as a child. and I had to react. And so I would put myself in the girl's position and think, what would I say?
Sure.
And then I had to think back, what would I have said when I was 10 years old? And what would I have thought about that when I was 10 years old?
Before we move on to Margot Brown, I want to ask you a little bit more about reading aloud to children. What were your favorite books to read aloud in the classroom?
Oh, I love to read aloud to kids. And you know what is a great shame is so many teachers don't read aloud. And you know, as a child, my favorite teachers were the ones who read aloud to me. I remember those teachers best. So I read aloud to all my 7th grade English. I always tell people I've never been in military combat, but I've spent over 30 years teaching junior high kids, and that qualifies me for just about anything. And I read to my 7th graders every day, and they loved it.
To 7th grade?
I had 7th graders, and at the beginning of the period, I would take attendance. I would sit on my desk and read the first 1 or 2 chapters of a novel. Then I'd put it down. Then we'd have the lesson on adverbs or prepositional phrases or whatever for the next 30 minutes. And we went through about 6 to 7 novels a year. And I'd love to tell you some of those titles.
Laura Ingalls Wilder, perhaps?
No, that was a movie, and the kids were a little bored with that by 7th grade. They loved The Giver by Lois Lowry, which is a futuristic novel about a boy who's about 12 years old. They loved that book. That was so exciting. Whenever we'd get to an exciting part, there'd be no absenteeism that day. I would notice that nobody stayed home. When I was an exciting part of a book, everybody came to school. And the kids would say, Miss Day, would you just read all period today? And I said, I can't. I have 6 classes. My voice just won't let me. And I still see kids today, and of course they're growing up today, and they'll say, hey, Miss Day, I remember that book you read. They don't remember the adverbs, but for some of them, I think it turned them into readers, which is the most important thing in the world, for kids to be lifelong readers.
You sound like a wonderful teacher.
Oh, I hope I did a fair job. Some of the other book titles, Snowbound by Harry Mazer, Crispin by Avi, Among the Hidden, I'm not sure of the author, but it's about a boy who's forced to hide upstairs because it's a community that only allows 2 children, and this family had 3, and they had to hide the 3rd boy upstairs, or he would have been put to death. And it's his life and how he escapes and how he finds other 3rd children hidden away, and they try to have a revolution, and that's a really exciting book. Bears of Blue River, about a true Indiana pioneer story. Bears of Blue River. Probably those were the main ones.
But Edward Eggleston wrote Hoosier Schoolmaster, and you have a book titled Death of a Hoosier Schoolmaster. So is that connected to the Eggleston
You know what?
book?
When I named my mysteries, I wanted to pick something that would catch someone's eye, because being an unknown. So my first mystery, Why Johnny Died, I knew it was about a 7th grade boy who dies at home of an accident, apparent accident. But later when his reading teacher, Mrs. Brown, finds his writing journal in his desk, and thinks she'll give it to his mother. As she reads through it, she picks up clues that makes her think there was foul play. So the teacher, Mrs. Brown, and her colleague start playing detective. And so anyway, I tried to think of a title that people would remember, that would notice, and I knew there was a book called Why Johnny Can't Read, Why Johnny Can't Run, about physical fitness, Why Johnny Can't Ride, and I thought, if I name it Why Johnny, then maybe that'll catch somebody's eye. So I called it Why Johnny Died, and someone said, well, you sure ended that series, didn't you? And the same thing with Death of a Hoosier Schoolmaster. I knew there was Hoosier Schoolmaster out there, so I tried to play on that title.
Thank you so much for being on the program today. We've been visiting with Marlis Day, author of Secret of Bailey's Chase and the Margot Brown series. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's been lovely.